earlier, a great panel. It changed into what's a DAO. Joel said there are no real DAOs. The only real DAO is Wall Street bets. I'm like, bro, they coordinated well for a week, but saying that's the only real DAO is weird, right? We should get them in here. Well, that DAO's now dead too, so we'll talk about that, which is not a bad thing. Can I start? Are we live? All right. This is a good crowd. At first we had one person, and then we had two, and now we have a decent crowd. All right, so this was originally the name of the talk, How DAOs Learn to Die, to get everyone here. Kind of worked. Felipe put it on there. I'd rather call it some Life-of-DAO frameworks. It's more friendly, I think. Just to intro, I'm Sky. I've been contributing to DAOs for a few years. These are some of the DAOs: MetaCartel, DAO House, Hydra, Public Nouns, Diamond DAO, Dawn, which is the DAO that governs the DAOists, and XDX DAO, which is a DAO that recently dissolved like 2.5 months ago. And so this is going to be an interesting topic, when die. And so we have many DAOs that have been started basically over the last 3 years. None of them, when they were started, no one ever thought about what is the end of this DAO. Like, I think everyone just assumed DAOs, if you create a DAO, it's going to live forever, right? If the original of the DAO still existed, and it, actually invested all that money in projects on Ethereum, could you imagine, try to even think about how it would be working right now? It would clearly be a lot different than one big the DAO, right? It's hard to even think about. It's actually an interesting thought experiment if we sat down and went through for 2 hours, what the ecosystem would look like, what that DAO would look like. And so that DAO, and then every DAO after it was never, no one, Maker, like any DAO, Uniswap, no one's thought about when that DAO might end or why it would end or how it would end. And so here are some reasons why a DAO might stop being around. You can have DAOs, once they accomplish their mission, they are, done. They don't have anything more to do. So they don't need to be around at that point. We have many DAOs that have basically died, and the term death is really general, but we have many DAOs. People get excited about a DAO for 3 weeks, they contribute a ton, and then 3 weeks later they move to another DAO, and so many DAOs just die out of lack of attention and stagnation. And so they don't actually close, they just sit around and they're basically dead because no one's doing anything. Failure to perform, especially in a bear market. Most DAOs in the space that had objectives of getting millions of users and millions of dollars of revenue and becoming profitable DAOs, there's very, very few. Maker is one net profitable DAO. Uniswap, if it turned to fiat, would be a profitable DAO. But Curve, everything in DeFi, most DAOs, grants DAOs, obviously, they're not sustainable and don't actually net make money after you include emissions and tokens. Discount to NAV. We have a lot of scenarios of DAOs where if the token is not, and we asked this in the last panel, because Optimism, the DAO is basically OP token. So even though there's $3 billion in there, you can't attack it, because if you attack it and you take the OP, what are you going to do with it? Sell it? No. So the DAOs that are being arbitraged, or something you could call it attacked, or attractive targets, generally have other assets like ETH and dollars and things that are not necessarily the native token. And in many of those DAOs, the market cap of the unofficial or official governance token is often way lower than the actual, can be lower than the treasury. In that case, there's this financial play of let me take governance control, let me take what is in the treasury, and that's just a financial play. And so there are scenarios where that's killed a bunch of DAOs, like RookFi, I think, is done because of that. The market cap of the governance token was $6 million, and the treasury had $45 million in it, right? And so it's not a true governance. I mean, they had to negotiate with the people that controlled the treasury, but is effectively a financial play. And then running out of money. There's a bunch of DAOs that have been doing great stuff that either don't have any money, ran out of runway, raised reasonable amounts of money. Now they ran out of that. And so some DAOs raised, $100 million and they just have this giant treasury. Other DAOs raised smaller amounts, and it's hard to raise in a market like this. And so even good projects with a long-term view might not have runway. And the last one could be poor treasury management. We have a lot of DAOs that have done great treasury management. Like, if it's an ETH, it's one thing, but like Golem, which I'm just learning, not a sponsor of this, but is a sponsor of Funding the Commons, they have like 500,000 ETH still. When they did their ICO, they raised $8 million, and they now have spent a lot of money. It's still at 500,000 ETH, and they're going to start, donating or giving to public goods, which is great. But the project and what it was supposed to do is like that. You could argue that's amazing treasury management. I mean, they held ETH, but other DAOs, DXDAO actually, and a bunch of DAOs did great, like diversify into ETH on the run up, into stables, and have some runway for years and stuff. But that doesn't having a big treasury doesn't mean you won't die as a DAO, right? Especially if there's ways to take that treasury or like evaluate that. And I'm here to tell you that it's okay for DAOs to die. Not only have many people not thought about it, but now we're seeing it happen, and we can't really stop it, and it's happening more and more, but it's probably not that big of a deal, and it's great learning lessons, so let's just say it's okay, right? This is a little bit of a tangent. Life cycle of a DAO. We did in Van and some people in Soulbound and in Korea. We did like a whole session during the day about like diving into like what a DAO, like the life cycle of it, and comparing it to things. And I like this comparison to nature or a forest. It's really more like a forest than a tree. So that's this forest diagram. But like all DAOs start as a little seed. There's one or a few people's idea. You start like sharing it around. It's just this like random idea. You start to like get attention, like get people to look at it. They give feedback. Maybe they go off. Ideally, they go off on their own. This is kind of Ven's analogy. They go off on their own. They bring back new ideas. You figure out that was the best thing. Let's move in that direction. It starts to germinate. It starts to grow. Growing is the exciting thing. Everyone's like, that's amazing. Let's all join it. Like, stop everything else we're doing. We're all doing this DAO. It starts to grow. Hasn't done anything yet, but it's growing. It's a meme at that point. Strong memes are great. And then it starts to become alive. It like raises some money or gets contribution. It gets one of the forms of capital in order to do stuff. There's 8 forms of capital, which Ben can tell you about later. It needs money, or at least people or human thought, right, dedicated to it. And it starts to grow. That's where it starts creating all the cool stuff that DAOs can do. And actually, life is the long part, right? This is not to scale, right? But the colors are kind of matching. But like a forest, it's got this amazing life. If it's got like mycelium and all the plants, and it's like bouncing off each other, it can have a great success. We also kind of need a favorable market where more users are coming in. If it's a bear market and we don't have many users to use DAOs or products or stuff, it's just tough in general. But in the short term, thinking like that's always going to hurt an ecosystem. So a DAO can start to age. It could have a sudden aging. It could have a slow aging. It could have a stagnant aging. And eventually, so that I went through that fast, but eventually it can die. And dying is a few of the ways I mentioned earlier, but that's the part about it's okay. So all these DAOs can have afterlives, right? And so afterlife is whether it's the capital or the people or the ideas, even if this thing dies. So this is for me the autonomous part. Everyone keeps saying the DAOs are not autonomous, like they're not automatic. That's not autonomous to me. It's sovereign, right? So we can all do whatever we want. Like I can go say I'm part of whatever DAO, and I can go do something. I can contribute. Whether the DAO pays me for it is another thing. But we're all autonomous people in a network, basically. We'll call it a network. And if you allow it to die, you get all of these people that are maybe wasting a time on something that's not going anywhere, and they can just go start new things. And so there's 10 people and they want to do something. There's 10 people that want to do something else. You let them take their capital, you let them take their ideas, you let them reorganize. Just like a forest tree burns down, like the thing comes up as new life, right? Which is awesome. You need the mycelium network probably and a strong network in order to help that process, right? You need someone to like, when the tree burns down, the mycelium like eats it up, right? And the soil, you need the soil, right? We should have DAOs and people that are focused on just the soil part, right? Soil DAO. This is a new DAO, right? Right? So that part is really important. And afterlife leads to new seeds in this new soil, and we have this like we can move on. So this is the natural life cycle of DAOs. It's okay that they die. They probably should die, and now we'll always think about that they will die. And so separately, we also have this core belief in Web3 and probably a lot of our core values of like the Web3 rights, which is right to exit and openness, like, and portability. So like if you're in a community or DAO or something and you feel stuck there, there's probably a major problem. Like if you can't leave and take your money or take your skills and go somewhere else, like that might be slavery, or like you don't want to be a slave to a DAO, right? So this general thing about right to exit is really important. There are certain DAO frameworks, which I'm in a lot of Moloch DAOs, which Amin created, and it has this core value, which is what allowed people to start playing with DAOs again, is like you can rage quit. So there's this grace period. If there's something going on or a bad proposal or something you don't like, you can just leave with your share of what is in that DAO. Now those are permission DAOs where you have this like shared management of something. There's not really they're non-transferable shares, so it's not liquid token governance. It's generally like non-transferable based governance. But if you generally put in assets together, help those grow or whatever, you can leave with your share. And so having rage quit or being able to sell your tokens on an open liquid market, if that's liquid token governance. The question is the governance token a true governance token, which many are not. Like if I say in the panel downstairs, we were talking about if your vote actually takes action and matters, then I call it a proper DAO. So I like all DAOs. They're making fun of me because I'm saying that's proper DAOs if your vote actually takes action. I like other DAOs too. I like even DAOs that are just communities around a theme and interest. But a proper DAO, if you have what you think is a governance token and you do a vote and like you guys decide something and then someone else can make another decision, that is not, for me, a proper DAO with a true governance token. And yeah, you can get liquid token governance versus non-transferable governance became more popular after like the Soulbound paper by Vitalik, even though many DAOs we've been doing that for many years. I think some combination of both is the answer. And so there is an open, unanswered question that if you have liquid token governance, can you force a decision point? And so this is going to get to what I'm going to lead to, but I'm not sure if this is possible because with liquid token governance, I think it has to be voluntary, so it gets a little tricky. It's easier with like the rage quit type DAOs. And so here's a framework that I'm thinking about. Like I said before, at this point, when you create a DAO now, you should probably never not think about the end of that DAO. If that end of the DAO is this DAO will live forever, then communicate that. But at least share that as part of your initial idea when people decide to join something. The cool thing is now that we know this exists, we can do a lot of things about it. DAOs, I've learned, like, if I had to sum up DAOs, what I've learned in the last 3 years of contributing to DAOs, they haven't been great at delegation. They're getting better at delegation. Okay, we have these delegates now. That helps a little bit with the voting. But, like, actually delegating power using something like hats But the key is you have to be able to take it back. So we want to have all these DAO tools that are Web 2E and Web 3, where the DAO has full control, can actually delegate decision-making power and capital to a team, a person, whatever. Let them do something, but then you need the evaluation. So delegation without evaluation is like pointless, and we're really, really bad at evaluation, and so we need to get better at that. But that's the DAO itself kind of taking more accountability rather than letting outside financial sharks look at a DAO and say, your DAO sucks. Like, you're not delivering in the next year in this bear market. We're going to just unwind the whole thing, right? Like, the DAO should be able to make this decision in like an effective way rather than just count on a few outsiders. So this is where forcing a decision point becomes really interesting and programming this in. And why? So like I said before, DAOs don't have CEOs. And so the DAO, the collective, is the CEO. And evaluation was the thing we're not great at. We need to get better at. But if you're not good at evaluation, what can you do? You can force a decision. So we with the help of Bitbecker and people, we can build this into the actual DAO. When we make this DAO, we can say, in 1 year, there is a decision point, like, and that could be time-based. So time-based in 1 year, like, if we're worried about stagnation, we say if we have a high quorum vote, like if 70% of the people, well, this is related to attention to it. In some point in time, we have this vote. You know, if 70% of the people don't vote on this thing, the thing dissolves. Everyone gets their money back, and forcing new life in other directions. Capital base, like if the DAO doesn't have X amount of money in a year, like it dies. Attention based is like, how many people are paying attention? If it's stagnant, like it kind of auto forces it to close down. Mission based can be like self-derived. You could use an outside oracle. You could use something like reality, like our stated mission was this. If this mission is not achieved by some third party decision making, the DAO can close down. I'm just going to get my water. Or accomplishment-based, which is similar to mission-based. So you actually can build this decision, and it would be interesting. So instead of DAOs being really general, I think like Nouns DAO is kind of getting attacked right now by arbitrageurs. Part of their problem, I think, is they don't have like a great mission in general, which is a problem. They don't have a mission built into their DAO. Like, if you're not doing their mission, let's close it down. Public Nouns, on the other hand, has an easier job. Like, Public Nouns is a nouns fork that is to fund experiments in public goods. It can do that, or like if it's not doing that, then you just shut it down. But like Nouns DAO is to like proliferate the meme of nouns, which is really like a hard mission to like think about. So they're just getting financial arbitrageurs coming and saying, I'm buying nouns, I want my share of the treasury. And it's like, well, that's not how nouns works. Like, there's no rage quit. So, but they're going to do it because they're going to buy enough nouns and they're going to just cause enough pain in the ass. And eventually there's going to be a deal and they're going to make money and they're going to leave. And then Nouns DAO is going to go on and then it's probably going to happen again. It would be cool if Nouns DAO just closed down and 150 noun fork DAOs with like specific missions popped up. So that would be like the forest example. And so when you have a forced decision point, you have some of these benefits. Even if like you could program it so the DAO is definitely shuts down in 1 year. Like there's no decision. What it means is at that 1 year it shuts down, but that date is coming, so everyone's paying attention. If things are going really well, you're ready. Like it's going to go shut down, and you have a new DAO already spun up. Everyone opts into the new DAO. 10% of people don't opt in. They're out. They weren't doing anything anyway. It like filters. That's the natural filter part. And then better accountability. No one's just going to sit there and like wonder if they're accomplishing anything because this point's just coming. You're going to have KPIs because you're going to want to prove in 1 year we achieved this in order to continue it, right? Otherwise, yeah, you get maybe shut down kind of automatically. Then there are also disadvantages about this kind of forced decision making. At DXDAO, one of the things we wanted to do from the start, it started with like 320 it's reputation-based governance, like non-liquid token governance. And there's more active ones, less active. But the idea is to like expand the number of holders. Like Uniswap protocol has 360,000 wallets that control the protocol. That is safer than 300 people, right? Than 300 wallets. So there was a goal to increase like who has ownership in the governance. Ideally, it's through contribution that you earn governance. And so if you have this filter and like you come to that point and 70% of the people don't opt back in, you had, let's say 100 people and now you only have 30 people in the new DAO, you just made it more centralized, which is actually can be a problem. If like the extreme is you only 3 people opt in, then you have a 3-person DAO, and that's not very safe, right? That can be attacked much easier. Decentralization is always our friend. There's a lot of operational work. What if like we don't want to close this down DAO, spin up a new DAO? There's cost to that. There's taking attention away from other stuff and disruption. And so, yeah, I'm not sure what my total summary is. I think it's that now this is all in your minds. It's kind of like once Bitcoin was invented, like no one in the world can pretend that Bitcoin doesn't exist. Now that we know, it's not me telling you this, like now that you know DAOs die because you've seen them die, you can't pretend that they don't. So you should always think about it. In every conversation, in every planning, what tools can we use to make it easier if they're going to die? Better frameworks, like maybe smaller DAOs, more ephemeral, I think the word, like temporary DAOs, with a specific mission where once that mission's accomplished, it like it kills itself because it doesn't need to exist anymore. But there's lots that just sit around and still have money in them. And Isaac, Isaac Patka was here earlier. He did a whole presentation at DevCon about attacking DAOs that have lack of attention. I attacked MetaClan. I stole all the money and I sent it to someone else because no one was paying attention. So lack of attention, they become risky. If no one's paying attention, DXDAO, if everyone stopped paying attention, you could just go take like $25 million. So we dissolved it so that it's not just sitting there for someone to go take. And last page, moving forward, in order to like push this all along, what we actually need is more DAOs instead of fewer DAOs. So if we're killing DAOs, we need more new DAOs. Pete has a goal, but we don't just need DAOs to have more DAOs. We want DAOs with specific ideas and missions, I think. Lots more experimentation, more research on this stuff, real case studies. So like we have case studies, like we could do a case study on Nowlands DAO, Aragon, DXDAO, MetaCartel, a bunch of DAOs that I'm a part of, and see what we've learned from that and share those lessons. Maybe a decision tree which got really complex. We tried to make one. It was getting very complex because there's all these decision points. Maybe there's a good software for that, and more DAOs in general. So thanks for listening to some Life-of-DAO planning and the death of DAOs. Yeah. Questions? Do I have time? 2 minutes.
I love the concept of time-bound DAOs. Like what can we do the next year around this mission so that people are very clear what they're opting into. I'm wondering what you think about like the concept of like sort of requiring DAO members to recommit every season, for example. Otherwise, they're automatically out of DAO, and it's like an intentional recommitment at very kind of shorter time intervals.
So the re-opt-in, yeah. So if you kill if you just recommit to the same DAO, I think DAOs have really hard time pivoting. So if it needs to pivot, it's going to be hard to just recommit and pivot that one. If you shut it down and make a new DAO, you basically have to go through the experience of that. And then you can, like, your new mission can easily be a new direction or multiple, like, let's say 3. Like, MetaCartel Grand Style could easily spin up into, like, 4 different directional smaller DAOs. It's not doing it because it's kind of doing it, but, like, if you just shut the one down and spun up the 4 new ones, then people get choose. Some people don't come back, and then everyone chooses the ones they want, and they just go. It becomes easier if you have to come out and back in, I think. I think that was your question. Yeah. Oh, we're done. Oh, one more question.
Would you consider Constitution DAO example of a time-bound DAO that did what it's going to do, failed, and then to solve and kill itself, even though, like, the token is used for other DAOs? Is it still a time-bound DAO?
Yeah, it's hanging around. It was mission-based. It didn't have privacy. It lost that mission. And then all of a sudden it then decided that it's going to do another thing, though, right? Or other people use that token for other things.
DAO died, and other people that weren't there used the token as a voting system for another DAO.
Yeah. So that's more composability of Web3. I have an idea for DAO. I don't need to launch my own token. I can go build an idea on any other asset that's out there on Ethereum, which is what they did. And so that's interoperability, or, like, that's the building blocks part of, because those people could have just done it with their own token. They didn't need to use that token. They thought that they had a common interest or something, right? I'm not an expert on that, though, but I did make some money on that token. Thanks. And next we have